Welcome to Movie Oubliette, the film review podcast for movies that most people have mercifully forgotten.
I'm Dan.
And I'm Conrad, and in each episode, we drag a forsaken film out of the oubliette,
Discuss it and judge it to decide whether it should be set free
or whether it should be thrown back and consigned to oblivion forever. Films others tend to forget. Come with us and open up the movie oubliette.
Hello and welcome to Movie Oubliette. I'm Dan.
I'm Conrad.
How are you today?
I'm pretty good. I'm excited to do episode 2.
I'm excited. Very excited. I am a little tiny bit under the weather.
Oh no.
I've had like a headache for about a week.
That's not good.
I don't know. It comes and goes, so I never know whether it's serious or not. But now it's kind of been a week, so I'll see what happens.
Oh no, that's scary. I hope it wasn't as a result of watching a film.
No, I don't think so.
You weren't shunted or something while you were asleep.
I hope not. That would be terrifying. There's a few things I noticed from last episode. I say like a lot, and I use the word strange all the time. Really? Everything is strange. So I've actually written a list of synonyms for strange that I can refer to when I run out of my vocabulary.
Okay.
So yeah.
Oh my! I didn't look to see which things I said too often. The only thing I noticed was that on your track, there's lots of occasions where you take an intake of breath and then don't say anything because I'm still talking.
No, that's not. I think I'm just breathing. I think I'm just staying alive.
Okay, that's good.
Okay. All right. So this is the movie Oubliette. And so every episode we take a film that has been forgotten or blanked because of its content or, I don't know, acting. I guess we're mainly reviewing sort of fantastical films, so horror and sci-fi and fantasy and all the good films, really.
Yeah, the good stuff.
A lot of them do come from the 80s, but I don't think we're not going to mainly do 80s films, but no. At the moment it seems 80s is the decade.
It's a rich seam of cheese, isn't it? It's
I like how they just thought up crazy ideas and just did them and didn't care what people thought.
Yeah, I don't think there was a single focus group in the 80s.
No, I don't think they had test audiences or anything. They just released the movies and yeah.
So Dan, which film are you going to drag out of the oubliette today?
Well, I'll just go get it, shall I? Just a second.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Careful of that trapdoor.
I'm just over here by the trapdoor. Just a second.
Oh my goodness! Watch out! Troll 2's trying to escape.
Get back in there. All right. I think I've got one.
Okay.
I am the chosen one.
All right, I'm back. So,
okay.
The movie I have picked today is a movie called Demons, otherwise known as Dèmoni, by the director Lamberto Bava, and it's a 1985 horror, I guess you would call it.
Yeah.
I don't think this movie is really horror because, I mean, it does have scary music and everything, and it has gore and all that sort of stuff, but it's the most of the music is a lot of 80s heavy metal, like lots and lots of rollicking, raucous distortion guitar and screaming and stuff, which completely changes the tone of the movie to be much more fun and actiony, and there are a lot less tense scenes and more just crazed, gory, frenzies. I guess you would call them.
Yeah, so it's more of an action movie almost.
Yeah, that's what I would say. So this is an Italian production. So all the actors and actresses that I believe are all Italian, but it's filmed in Berlin. And in saying that as well, it's all in English. I'm not sure what's going on here.
Yeah, the lead actress, Natasha Hovey, I think she's actually, it says here, she was born in Beirut.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting international cast. But as with all Italian movies, it doesn't really matter because everybody just speaks their native language and the whole movie's dubbed anyway.
Yeah,
so
it's all dubbed over. Yeah. How does that work? Because in this movie, everyone's Italian, but they're obviously speaking English because the dubbing matches their lips.
Most of the time, yeah. Some of the bit players, maybe not, but
yeah. So some of the time, yeah, it was a bit dodgy with the whole dubbing. But are the dubbed voices other actors?
Yeah,
because none of them have Italian accents or anything. They all sound.
No, I think they are. I think it is. Yeah, I think there's a whole industry around dubbing people. Like particular voice actors become famous for dubbing a particular actor all the time.
Yeah, that makes sense with movies that aren't in that language. But this movie is in English, and they are speaking English, but then the dubbing actors get no credit.
Yeah, I don't know. It's very
that
odd.
must really suck.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It's very odd.
Okay, so the plot of the film is the main girl, who I have forgotten her name.
Cheryl or Cheryl?
Cheryl. So Cheryl gets an invite to a movie screening, and so she brings her friend along, and they go along to the cinema, and there's a multitude of colourful characters in the cinema, including a pimp and his working girls.
Indeed.
A blind man.
Yeah. And what's the relationship between him and the woman that he's with?
I have no...
Is it his daughter?
I assumed it was his daughter.
Okay. And
then they watch this movie. There's a mask in the movie that makes a person go crazy. And that same mask was also in the foyer of the movie theater, and one of the audience members gets cut by the mask and turns into a demon, and then all sorts of fun rollicking events happen after that, all set in this movie theater. So in a sense, it's almost like a siege movie, so they're trying to get out.
Yeah,
almost. Yeah, so they're trying to escape the movie theater as more and more people turn into zombies. They're not zombies, they're demons, I guess.
They're not far off though, are they?
Yeah, with extra features.
Yeah.
Anything else you can elaborate about the plot?
No, I think that's a good setup. I think that explains it pretty well. Okay, so I guess we'll take a break now, and when we come back, we'll talk about the movie.
Let's do it.
So, I guess now we should talk about the movie. What did you think of the movie? I mean, you'd seen it before, I guess.
Yes. So I'd seen it maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And it's exactly how I remember it. Except, I guess, like we mentioned, there's a lot of 80s heavy metal in the soundtrack, and not a lot of tense, cliche horror music. It's just very loud and abrasive heavy metal music.
Yeah.
Which made it really fun.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that I struggle with Italian films of this era, and generally in terms of their approach to film scoring, because there's this certain school of thought in Italian movies whereby they just pretty much compose the soundtrack, not in terms of actually writing score cues for scenes. They just sort of what I would call needle drop. They just, so Ennio Morricone, for example, would just sort of read the script, compose 5 pieces of music, hand them over, and they just sort of put them wherever the director would put them wherever they want to. And I think that's true of Claudio Simonetti. His score for this, I think, pretty much consists of one track,
Yeah.
which opens the movie.
The opening track, right? And he incorporates Hall of the Mountain King by Grieg.
Yeah, from Peer Gynt.
Which I thought was kind of cute.
Yeah, which is an interesting reference to make, of course, because that's about a character that goes into the Hall of the Mountain King who's actually a gnome or a troll or something like this. I think he's a troll. So he's going in there and he goes through lots of weird and fantastical adventures and is almost devoured, I think, and has to escape. So if you compare that to the setup of this movie, which is a group of people going into a darkened auditorium to watch a movie and they're beset by various monsters and then they have to try to escape, I think that's an interesting parallel.
That's a very, very good point that I didn't think about. That's amazing. There's so many times where music is chosen or is composed specifically for a film that I just don't understand the correlation, and then people will explain it to me. I'm like, oh yeah, that's pretty black and white, isn't it?
Yeah, and well, hopefully that's true. I mean, sometimes it's just, I like the sound of it. But
yeah, true.
I think there was actually some thought put into this, which I thought was interesting.
I mean, I think there was a little bit of thought, but I think overall, I feel like this movie was made specifically for people that like gory horror movies.
Yeah.
And it was kind of even more sort of catered towards like heavy metal, like metalheads and stuff that, they wear Slayer t-shirts and they've got all sorts of like gory corpsey images on their shirts and they love this sort of thing. So it's almost and some of the characters in the movie were kind of punk rockers. I feel like the demographic for this was very, very honed in. It wasn't sort of like I don't think a kind of older person at the time would really appreciate this movie whatsoever.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think they knew their audience and they really went full tilt for them, didn't they?
Yeah. One thing I wanted to mention, because it's an Italian production, like you mentioned with the score, Italian productions, especially with horror, always very low budget and they're cutting costs everywhere.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure the entire film was filmed without sound and they added the sound all in post, I think.
Yeah, and again, I think that ties in with what I mentioned before, which is I think because they tended to be international productions and have a variety of people, some of whom could speak Italian, some of whom couldn't, they would just replace all of the dialogue afterwards and then just do an English version and an Italian version. So a lot of the time with international movies, I never watch a dubbed version. I will always watch the version that's in the original language.
Me too.
Because I'm not bothered by reading subtitles and I actually want to hear the sound of the actor's or actress's voice. It's to me, it's really important. Even if the cultural differences mean that the inflections are different. So like a Japanese movie, the vocal inflections are entirely different. You get to know what they are.
Yeah.
And it's just intrinsic to enjoying the movie for me. But when you get to an Italian production like this, it's like there was no original soundtrack.
There wasn't.
So there's no point you just watch the English version because there really isn't a definitive version of this movie in terms of audio.
Well, I think this is the definitive version because they're speaking in English. Like you compare it to other Italian kind of like giallo movies where they're speaking in their actual naked tongue, in their native tongue, which would be Italian, let's say. And when it's dubbed over in English, it's all wrong because nothing matches up. No. But with this film, it does match up. I mean, most of the time it matches up.
A lot of the time, but not always.
Not always. There were a few moments where the actor was clearly not speaking, but words were being heard. But yeah, I mean, it's all about cutting costs because by not worrying about sound on location, you can get away with so much stuff. You can have the director verbalizing exactly what the actors are supposed to be doing, and it doesn't matter because all of that stuff is going to be replaced anyway.
The sound design, I think it has to be said, is uniformly pretty bad.
Oh, there were so many moments, like even at the opening scene where she's in the train station and the guy with the mask is following her. There's no sound at all.
No.
Like, I know it's a horror movie, but there's actually no sound. Like, you can hear an odd footstep, but there's nothing else at all, and it's quite unsettling to watch a movie where there's no sound.
And I don't think it's by design.
But you also have to remember that, this is back during analog times, so sound design wasn't an easy feat. You had to like literally cut and tape together bits of analog tape.
Bits of magnetic tape. Yeah.
Oh, one thing also from last week, how you were going on about looping, and I'd never heard that term before because I'm so used to ADR or dubbing. So looping, I looked it up, is referring to back with analog equipment. They would get the video tape and they would loop that over and over, and then the person would record the ADR over it. And that's why it's called looping, because they would loop it over and over, and they would just record take after take.
Keep going until they got the synchronization right. Yeah.
So that's why it's called looping, and that's why I'd never heard of it. Another thing, this is completely separate from everything. On set, you know how a director will be camera, and then the cameraman will be rolling, and then he would say sound, and then the sound guy would say speed. And I always was like, why would you say speed? I don't understand why you would say speed. And I looked it up because I am a sound person, and I have worked on a few short films on set. I looked it up, and back in the old days with audio equipment, because they were recording to tape, they had to wait. When they pushed record, they had to wait for the tape to get up to speed before it would actually record like the normal speed. So that's why they would say speed. Okay, back to the movie.
Back to the movie, but the sound design in this one is, it's ropey. I mean, it shows its budget, I think.
It does. A lot of parts where the ADR, the acting, was horrendous, to put it lightly. There were many scenes that remind me of The Room. I don't know whether you've watched The Room, which is it's considered one of the worst movies ever made.
Indeed, yeah. No, I haven't. I've seen Room, which I thought was a very good movie, but I haven't seen The Room.
There are many scenes in Demons which remind me of The Room. Just like a lot of shouting for no apparent reason.
Well, this is the thing with Italian horror movies of this era, that a lot of it, a lot of movies made in Italy in this period were rip-offs of American movies, or they would pretend to be sequels to popular American movies, and it's very difficult to argue that they're actually bringing anything to the table other than just sort of a heightened sense of drama, the sort of, I don't know, is it culturally stereotypical to say the operatic sort of hysteria that they add to the proceedings? And sometimes the combination, I mean, it has to be said, the acting in this thing is terrible. And somehow the combination of really bad physical acting, overacting, and it being looped after the fact with really bad hysterical looping, and it not matching the lips very well. It gets really ridiculous, and sometimes they say the most stupid things.
Ah, yes.
So, like, after the sort of first wave of attacks and everybody's running out of the theater and trying to escape, and they suddenly discover that when they try to open the doors, it's a solid brick wall behind there, and they're trapped somehow. George, who is one of the two main male characters that Cheryl and her friend Kathy meet up with when they arrive at the cinema, after a touching meet cute scene over by the vending machine where George saves the day and rescues her can of drink. I don't know what it is. But George suddenly shouts, "There has to be an explanation."
I thought that was one of the best lines in the movie because it's just so stupid.
You would really shout that when you're trying desperately to escape a perilous, life-threatening supernatural situation, wouldn't you?
I feel like I want to shout that in real life for any perplexing scene, any situation I'm in. I'm just gonna shout, but there has to be an explanation.
I'm gonna try it at my next meeting. I think that would be great. And one of my other favorite ones is a scene where there's actually a really good bit of misdirection in the movie. So I think they're all up on the balcony because it's a beautiful theater. It's a 2-level, one of the really old-fashioned auditoriums that have like a balcony, a second layer. It's this beautiful old building, and they're up on the balcony.
Yeah,
they've found a body, that of a person who's been attacked. And they're arguing about, because they think it's going to turn and get up and start attacking them as well. So they're arguing about throwing this body over the balcony down into the auditorium below. And it's a good bit of misdirection because you're so sort of, as much as you can be caught up in the drama of that particular issue and people arguing with each other, that when another demon launches up from the balcony and attacks them, it's actually a surprise. It's actually a really well-engineered gag.
Yeah.
But one of the characters suddenly shouts, "Oh my God, my husband!" It's like, okay, what are you trying to remind the audience who this guy is? I don't care. And you wouldn't shout that. It's like, "Ooh, my husband."
Yeah.
I don't know.
I did find the characters I just didn't understand why they just would follow orders. Like, let's rip out all the chairs and barricade the door. Like, these are bolted down, like, movie chairs. How's that a very... I don't know.
It didn't cause them too much difficulty, though, did it? I mean, they were tearing those chairs up, whole rows.
They were.
Yeah.
They really were. So apparently the set of this movie, it was an actual abandoned theatre.
Yeah.
So they could just do whatever they wanted inside.
Yeah, it's a nightclub now, isn't it?
Well, so the interior shots are abandoned theatre, and the exterior shots were of the Goya Theatre, which is in Berlin somewhere. Which I'm still not sure what it is now because I've read many different sources have cited different things. So one said it's a bank now, one says it's still a theatre, and another says they have a lot of horror conventions there.
Oh, right, okay.
Because of this movie.
Yeah, okay.
But I don't know which one is correct.
Okay.
So if anyone out there could tell us, that would be great.
Yep, let us know. Movie Oubliette on Twitter.
I'm also a little bit gutted because I was in Berlin last year and I didn't know that theatre was in Berlin. So I didn't go see it because it's still there.
Yeah.
Next time.
I mean, we could talk about why is it set in Berlin? And as far as I can tell, because I thought, wow, because this is 84, 85. Yep. So this is, obviously the wall is still there.
Yeah, it's true.
Is the movie sort of a comment on the tensions in the Cold War and demons coming out of the other side? And is that what it's trying to pull on? And then I listened to the commentary and the director just said, I just liked it. So it's like, just liked Berlin, fancied a holiday. Great.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. So
yeah, I mean it's a great city.
It looks beautiful.
It's very kind of urban, but I think also there are a lot of abandoned buildings there as well, especially in the 80s. So I think maybe going back to the whole cheap aspect, I think it was just a cheap option.
Yeah, the wall was very much still there and stayed there until the mid-90s when David Hasselhoff tore it down, didn't he? Didn't he sing a song and that was the end of the Cold War?
Sure.
Yeah. David Hasselhoff.
The Hoff fixes everything.
Yeah, don't mess with the Hoff.
But the fact that it's set in Berlin, they never actually say, "Oh, we're in Berlin," or
No.
and everyone speaks English.
Yeah.
And you can tell it's Berlin because everything's in German, and the train stations she's in, everything's in German. But they never reference it at all, and they never kind of, make it obvious that it's set in Berlin.
No, they don't. And it is a missed opportunity, certainly in terms of trying to, bring some meaning to the film. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that was one thing that I was trying to get a sense of, was what this film is sort of about, because there isn't a plot, really.
No.
There's no characterization.
No.
There's very little logic. The only hint of there being some sort of drama is with Liz and Werner. So you have Werner, the blind guy, and Liz, who's sort of looking out for him and describing the movie that they're watching to him. So she's basically the audio description service. But she's a bit derelict in her duties, because she sneaks off after sort of the first 10 minutes to make out with some guy who shows up.
Yeah, I know.
Was it prearranged, or did she just like him? I
think it was prearranged. Surely, I mean,
they do this every week.
Okay.
Yeah,
I don't think she would just randomly hook up with a guy that just happened to sit next to her. She's just that burdened by her father, her blind father, that she just hooks up with every guy. I don't know. I don't think that's plausible. I mean, that was supposed to be a joke, right? The fact that a blind guy is at a movie screening.
Yeah, but it dates the movie somewhat, because, I mean, my local cinema shows films with audio description service all the time, and it's commonplace now.
What did you think about the characters? I mean, they're very stereotyped.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's broad brushstrokes, isn't it, really? You get no sense of who Cheryl is, the main character. Kathy doesn't like horror movies. That's about the only thing you learn about her before she succumbs. Spoilers. And then you've got George and Ken. Ken with the cheekbones, who are just there and see these two young ladies and take a shine to them. And because you're saying about Liz, we just wouldn't hook up with a random guy that's in the theatre. But I mean, Kathy and Cheryl don't seem to have a problem with George and Ken sitting either side of them and holding their hands and clutching them as the movie begins. And then spending the rest of the movie with them, trying to escape, almost as though they've paired off and they're two couples. Which would you do that, or would you just go with your friend and leave these two guys? I don't know. And then you've got, various other people. You've got the old married couple. That's my husband. And the only interesting bit of characterization you get with them is on their way in, she's complaining about the fact that they're going here because she says it's our anniversary. And he says, well, I'm taking you to a show. I thought, well, a free show, and it's a horror movie.
Yeah.
How romantic.
I quite like George's character, though, because, he almost became like a Rambo figure.
Oh God, yeah, the motorcycle scene.
The motorcycle and the helicopter, and he had his cut off sleeves, and he was glistening, and so good.
You think?
I don't know. I didn't expect it. I didn't expect him to be so heroic towards the end. So it was kind of a nice change of pace from just everyone screaming and running in different directions.
Yeah, I guess so.
The scene where they're banging on the wall to get attention from outside was just ludicrous. Like, what are they doing? They're just banging on a wall of chairs. Like, oh God.
Yeah, and eventually they do break through a wall and explore another strange concrete pillared location. And one of my favorite moments is they walk into one room and George says nothing doing in there, and then he walks into another room and there's no exits, and then they go into a third one even though it also has no exits, and the women of the group pat ineffectually against the brick walls for apparently no reason, even though they I don't know, are they expecting that it might just collapse with a bit of patting? And then they become hysterical because I think because there's a noise on the soundtrack and something is happening to them. And then there's a hard cut and we're back in the auditorium again and they're all having a smoke as though that was some sort of sexual experience or something. They're all just lounging around having a fag.
It was a strange scene in that room of walls, right? Because all the girls just suddenly simultaneously just went hysterical.
Yeah.
And I thought it was gonna end up in, it was gonna lead to something, but it just didn't.
No. Hard cut back to the auditorium and they're having a fag.
Yeah. They could have made that room so much more interesting as well. I mean, it was just a brick room, with walls. They could have, I don't know, they could have made it a lot more bizarre, or something a little more surreal.
And you feel as though this is like the labyrinth, and it's just sort of spinning out of nowhere, and it's this strange underworld that they've ventured into. That's the demon world or something. But they just sort of pat on the walls, have hysterics, and then go back.
Yeah, I thought the scene where they break into the projection room was another just almost pointless scene. I mean, just the idea that the pimp character thought, hey, it's caused by the projection, let's stop the movie. Like, I mean, it's a very far-fetched theory of why people would be turned into demons. But I mean, I guess it's a horror movie. Yeah, so I kind of feel that a huge majority of the film was just a bunch of people running around breaking things and smashing things and ripping things off the wall and tipping things over.
Yeah, I mean, and it's strange that they even bother with the automated projector, like you say, because they think that this is going to stop the demon outbreak or something. And then when they find that the projector's automated, somebody says that means nobody's ever been in here. And I think, no. What did you expect to find a guy manually feeding it through? Or what? It's very strange, but it does lead to one moment that I think is interesting, and it's the only thing that I found with my textual analysis head on that I found interesting about the film is all the interplay between the movie itself and the movie that they're watching. And there are a few nice parallels there. I mean, in that case, when they do break the projector, what appears on the screen is obviously what would appear if the first reel ran out, which it just says end of first half, and it's literally at the halfway point during the movie, which is quite funny. And I mean, there are other moments in the film. I mean, there are parallels. I mean, the film proper opens with a pair of headlights coming towards the camera out of the darkness, and it turns out to be the train. The movie they're watching in the theatre, two lights coming out of the darkness like demon eyes, and it's two motorcycles.
Right.
Both films have two couples, and there's a wonderful scene where the usherette,
the one that was dressed like an elf for some reason.
Yeah, she's a redhead, so I guess green is a good color for her. But I mean, she's a startling looking actress. But she's wondering. I thought she was in on the whole thing, but she ends up being a victim, just like everybody else. But there's a lovely scene where she's sort of stalking the aisles with a torch, and as she turns, she catches one of the working girls smoking. But as she sort of turns around and sweeps past the camera with her torch, and the torch beam goes past, you get a reverse shot of the movie they're watching, and a beam of light goes across this sort of gothic mansion that the characters in that are approaching. But it turns out to be the headlight from one of the motorcycles. So, but I thought it was a remarkably deft bit of interplay and showed a level of craft that I think the rest of the film sort of lacked, to be honest.
Another thing to add to that I didn't notice these things, but another thing that also has correlation with the movie and the movie that they're watching, is the actor that plays the guy in the mask.
Oh, right, yeah.
Is also the same actor that gets that puts the mask on in the movie.
Oh, I see. So he could be a survivor of the movie.
Of the fictional movie.
Of the fictional movie who's now in the movie, inviting people to his movie.
If you ever watch the sequel, Demons 2, it continues that even more.
Okay.
And it gets very meta for the 80s.
Oh, well, maybe we'll drag that out of the Oubliette at some point. But, yeah, I mean, there are other ones as well, like there's a scene where one of the other working girls, after she's been attacked by the first one, whose name is Rosemary, who's the first to turn into a demon, she's actually behind the cinema screen, and she erupts through it at a point when a knife goes through some tent fabric in the movie. A woman is being attacked,
I noticed that
and
too.
a knife goes through some fabric, and the screen actually tears, and this girl falls through it, which apparently is in Scream 2. I haven't seen Scream 2 for a while, but apparently it happens.
It is in Scream 2.
Yeah.
Oh, I wonder if they're referencing this movie.
Yeah, I don't know whether they are consciously or if they just sort of happened on the same idea separately. But I mean, again, in that movie, they're watching a fictional version of Scream 1.
That's true.
So there is a sort of it's all very meta. But I mean, the interplay between the movie and the reality all comes to an end at that point where it says end of first half when they break the projectors. And then all of a sudden there's this hard cut to a bunch of punks in a stolen car listening to We Close Our Eyes by Go West.
Yeah.
Just cruising Berlin at night. And I thought, who are these people? Why are we here? What's happening?
Yeah.
Why are punks listening to Go West, which is the most middle of the road American synth rock that I can imagine?
I thought the introduction of the punks was they didn't need to have that much sort of screen time because they weren't even that important to the story. Even when they did, they ended up breaking into the cinema. Well, not really breaking, entering
to escape
the cinema.
The police. Yeah,
but then they don't really change anything.
No.
If you took the punks out of the movie, it wouldn't have changed the movie at all.
Except it would have been 20 minutes short.
Yeah. Like, I thought they were going to survive a bit longer or help out the main characters, but they didn't. They just ended up turning into demons.
No. Structurally, it's weird. I mean, it gives us some great moments, like moments that had to be trimmed in the UK when it was first released on video because... Yeah, seeing somebody scraping cocaine off of a woman's nipple with a razor blade apparently proved a little bit strong for the UK censor back in the back in the 80s during the whole video nasties scare.
Was it a part of the video nasties? Do you know?
It very well could have been. I think that tended to be things more like Cannibal Holocaust. And certainly the Evil Dead, although they missed a trick there because Evil Dead isn't really all that serious. It was caught up in that, and it certainly was cut. I mean, you couldn't see a lot of that stuff. And I'm just imagining making a movie now where you have somebody snorting cocaine out of a Coca-Cola can with a straw.
Yeah, I thought that scene was genius, though. I mean, come on, they're snorting coke out of a Coke can. That's amazing.
Well, now you have to clear all of your product placements. I just cannot see Coca-Cola signing off on this.
I know. But, I mean, the only beverage they seem to drink in the entire movie is Coca-Cola, so... I don't know.
Are you suggesting it may actually be a sponsorship for the budget?
I don't know.
My goodness.
I don't know.
It could have been. Maybe they were... I mean, the exec was coked up when he signed off on it.
Yeah.
Who knows? It was the 80s.
To do with the release of the movie, I read that the movie wasn't released in Germany for some reason.
Really?
Even though it was filmed in Germany.
Filmed there and not released there.
It wasn't released until they released Demons 2. And so what's really confusing is they released Demons 2 in Germany as Demons 1. And then they re-released Demons 1 as Demons 2. I don't know why they did that, but
Weird. It must have confused the hell out of them.
I mean, a lot of like 80s, 70s, 80s, like especially Italian horror films, they had so many titles, depending on what country they were released in. So it gets very, very confusing because often some of the titles were the same title as other movies.
Yeah.
So like it gets very confusing with the zombie movies from the 70s and 80s because they all have very similar or exactly the same titles.
Yeah, and as well as that, because of this practice of doing unofficial sequels to American movies and even their own movies, I think there are something like 3 or 4 different films that could be considered to be Demons 3.
Yeah, yeah.
But none of them are official sequels, or maybe they were just marketed as that. I don't know. It's just, it gets very confusing. As does this movie in its final act. I don't know if we want to talk about that because not only do we get confused in the midsection when we suddenly hard cut to some people listening to Go West and snorting cocaine by the can load, when we cut back to the action proper, it suddenly turns into sort of like an apocalyptic epic, or what it's trying to be one on a very slim budget. I mean, what did you think of that?
So are you talking about when spoiler alert, when they escape the movie theater?
Well, even before that, I mean, why? Maybe you can explain this to me. Why does a helicopter fall through the ceiling?
Yeah.
I mean, all of this, of course, is after George, as you say, has become this torn shirt hero, driving around the movie theater on a motorcycle.
On a motorbike wielding a sword.
Wielding a samurai sword, which was part of a display in the foyer. And I have no idea what the hell that display was supposed to be or why you would have a motorbike that was gassed up.
I feel like they had a limited amount of props and they just had to shoehorn them in there. Like they were like, we've got a motorbike, we've got a sword.
Yeah.
What can we do? We've got a helicopter. How can we use this? Come on, guys, think.
Yeah, but I mean, that in itself, how did they get the wreckage of a helicopter into the auditorium? Maybe it's a different location. God only knows. But I mean, so a helicopter crashes through the ceiling and that means that they can escape through a hole in the ceiling because luckily the helicopter has a rocket-fired grappling hook.
I thought that was really
and
convenient.
George knows how to use it.
I know. I was
maybe that's what he is in his spare time.
I was very impressed. You know, that's why I was very impressed by his character. You know, he suddenly became this muscled up hero. He's wielding a sword. He's working a rope pulley contraption. I thought it was like I was pretty amazed by his abilities.
Yeah.
One character that I was a bit disappointed about was the guy in the mask. You know, he was so intriguing, that it had so much mystery around him. But then he just turns out to be a kind of a psychopath, but with no motivations.
No,
you know, and also very easily killed as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
He just
he sort of bent over and let them do this ridiculously complicated thing involving a pipe and sort of levering him down onto an exposed pipe that they could skewer him on. But he was very patient waiting for them while they got it set up rather than them just clubbing him with it, which would have been easy.
I know. And it was very drawn out, I guess, to build tension, but it just made it look a little bit awkward.
Yeah. So that's what happens to them on the roof, and then they escape into the world, and the world, it seems, has been overrun by demons. It's happening everywhere, and they end up in a jeep trying to get away from the city to find somewhere to live with A family? Are they a family of people? I think they are.
Yeah.
Who are sort of gunning people down as they
I
drive through
know.
Berlin in a Jeep.
A little like 10-year-old just like blowing people away with a shotgun.
Yeah, Kurt and his father tells him, "Good shot." Yeah, that's and June seems to shoot Mick Jagger. I don't know if you noticed that.
Oh, yes.
The guy that she shoots just looked like they'd accidentally driven past the Dancing in the Street video shoot and
That's so
shot
funny.
Mick Jagger. I don't know. That was
Yeah.
just something that it struck me as funny. And
And then the final scene.
the final, spoiler alert, very awkward false ending, which I guess false endings on movies are very popular. The whole sort of send them out with one last jump.
Jump scare.
Yeah.
I mean, I recently watched Friday the 13th, and so now I just expect all movies we watch to have the final jump scare.
Yeah, and this movie doesn't really peddle in jump scares a lot. I mean, there's the moment I mentioned before with "That's my husband" lurching at them over the balcony that works because you're misdirected before it happens. But a lot of the time, you spend staring at the back of people's heads in suspense, waiting for them to turn around with demon makeup on.
I know.
And-
I feel like that's their. It was like their one trick pony that they just continuously used over and over and over. It's like, hang on, wait a second. Not enough makeup on yet. Just a second. Wait for it. Wait for it.
Wait, Kathy's gonna turn around again. Will she have more than the contact lenses in when she turns back this time? Yeah, and it just robbed the whole thing of any tension, really. I'm sorry to say.
Yeah, I mean that's why I see this more of an action adventure movie, because I didn't feel tense whatsoever in the entirety of the movie, but I just felt it just felt fun all the time. I just felt like I was just watching fun scenes where people's hair was getting ripped out or their necks were getting, torn open. But it was fun. I don't know. It made blood fun. But I mean, there was a lot of liquid, but it wasn't all blood. There was a lot of
lots of green and
lots of green, lots of green slime and a lot of indiscriminate liquid as well. There's one scene where one of the demons falls on one of the girls with the curly hair, and he just liquefies. It's almost like there's a waterfall of just liquid just pouring out of his body.
Yeah.
And it really didn't. I think they just wanted to do that effect without having any explanation whatsoever.
No, and surprisingly, her blouse is not all that dirty. About one shot later, which is really odd because she was drenched in the stuff when it happened.
Now it's time for random trivia.
Okay, Dan, what is your random trivia moment for this film?
Wow, my random trivia moment, according to very reliable sources, hopefully,
Wikipedia.
is so the Metropole Cinema is where the movie is set fictionally. That Metropole Cinema can be seen in the video game Silent Hill. And it's pretty much exactly the same building front, and even the lettering of the Metropole is exactly the same.
Cool. Obviously a reference.
But I don't play video games, so I would not know that without the internet.
Me neither. Everybody else is probably there saying, yeah, duh. That's a great trivia moment.
Oh, one thing we should mention is one of the co-writers is Dario Argento.
Dario Argento. And did you figure out which one of the cast is his daughter?
It's
or one of his daughters?
It's a girl that had the liquefy.
Oh, yeah, that's not. He always gives his kids the best roles. I think Asia Argento gets a rough ride in his movies too.
I've never seen her. So this actress, Fiore Argento.
Fiore, yeah. I'm not sure how you pronounce that.
I've never seen her in a movie before. Any one of Dario Argento's movies, but I've seen Asia Argento in a bunch of stuff. and I can't stand her, to be honest. She overacts all the time, and it's really hard
Yeah.
to sit through. But I have to say, Dario Argento is very hit and miss for me. Like his early stuff I really love, but anything kind of post 80s, yeah, I'm not sure.
No, I mean, even the stuff, even the 80s stuff, I have trouble with it, to be honest. I don't tend to find it very enjoyable, but I appreciate some of the set pieces, but to me they come off as over-engineered Hitchcock or De Palma.
Yeah.
And it never seems to have a point other than the spectacle of it, whereas in Hitchcock and De Palma there is a point usually.
Yeah, sure.
But I'm not sure whether I detect any Argento in this particularly.
No, it didn't have the signature kind of scenes that he always has.
No, I mean, the one scene that did look a little bit Argento-ish, if that's a word, was the scene with the usher walking through the aisles, because there is quite a nice tracking shot across a group of our main characters, and the focal point is the torch, and I can imagine that sort of tracking shot following the torch through the aisles being a knife in an Argento movie that you would be seeing this thing moving through. But I mean, there are some nice shots in the movie. I mean, I thought sort of the shot looking up at the theatre as the girls are about to enter it, seemingly in the middle of the night, even though they just say, "Are you sure you want to cut class?" And I'm thinking, what school are you going to? Night school, obviously.
Yeah. I was actually really impressed by the cinematography. Like, I thought visually it looked great. Like, really good. Like, especially some of the lighting effects that they used.
Yeah.
There's that one scene where the demons are all like running up the stairs, I think.
Yeah.
And it's all backlit and their shadows are on the ceiling. And then they've got glowing eyes. Like, I thought that scene looked amazing.
Yeah, the glowing eyes effect is really good. I quite like that. And it's probably the simplest one in the whole movie, but it's really effective. Yeah. So you've got them approaching up this tunnel emerging from the theatre, and then there's shadows converging on the ceiling, and it's pretty effective, that shot.
Yeah. I mean, I even found some of the kind of more mundane shots really well composed and very well lit. Like, even some of the interior shots of the punks in the car, like, it looked great. Like, it looked like it could be a modern film. Comparing to Society that we did last episode, like, that was a very flat, dull kind of look to it, whereas this was a lot more striking, a lot more, they used light and shadow a lot better. Yeah, I thought it was very, very well put together visually.
Yeah, they're actually telling a story visually a lot more than they did in Society, for sure.
Obviously, it's a bit of a shame that everything else was very secondary, or if not even important whatsoever in terms of sound, acting,
plot, character development, logic.
Yeah.
Pacing.
I mean, yeah, I would definitely say that the standout aspects of the film were the cinematography and the makeup effects and all the special effects they used were just really fantastic.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Coming to you live from the movie Oubliette Theatre, it's the prestigious Mobley Awards.
Okay, so it's time for the Mobley Awards, where we give awards for some of our favourite categories for this type of movie. As always, we kick off with favourite quote. Dan, what was your favourite quote?
My favourite quote, sorry, I'm just referencing my notes here. I did really like "There has to be an explanation." That was very great, very good. But there's also another scene where I think it's the second girl is getting turned into a demon behind the screen, and she's screaming and she's trying to get through, and there's also more screaming from the actual movie that they're watching. And then I think it's Cheryl says, "Oh, the screaming, it's real. I think there's screaming coming from behind the screen." And then I think George says, "Come on, it's a Dolby system." I thought that was just great.
Oh, that is good.
Because, I mean, Dolby systems are that good. It just sounds so real.
Indeed, yeah, especially in 1985. So my favorite would be in the movie where they discover the crypt of Nostradamus, and they discover a book inside it, and they pull it out and they find the mask as well. And the guy says, whoever wears the mask becomes a demon. And the other guy says, how do you know that? And he says, because it says whoever wears the mask becomes a demon.
So good.
Which I think is just great. I don't know if the movie's intentionally supposed to be crap, but
Yeah.
the movie within a movie. So, most 80s moment.
I mean, having 80s heavy metal throughout the whole movie felt very 80s. Yeah, I can't really pick it because it was set in Berlin and it was an Italian production. It wasn't as, stereotyped American 80s. So, how about, what do you think?
Well, I thought perhaps the moment where one of them is turning into a demon and Tony says, we got to get out of here, the pimp.
Yeah.
But nobody actually goes anywhere. And I think this is a uniquely 80s thing that while somebody's going through an elaborate multi-stage makeup transformation, everybody else has to stand and watch.
Yeah. Well, they've spent a lot of money on that effect.
Yeah. So they can't just run away from it or chop her head off or something.
Yeah.
They've got to stand and watch every single step of this transformation. Just like Michael Jackson's Thriller music video, where that woman just stands there and watches Michael Jackson turn into a werewolf for about 20 minutes,
Yeah.
rather than getting a head start.
Yeah.
So I think that's a uniquely 80s phenomenon.
Who'd you have as best hair?
Best hair, I was going to say the Usher, because I think she's got an amazing head of hair. I mean, she's got this amazing 80s perm. It's very curly, and still it's sort of almost down to her bum. So you just think, how long is this hair when it's straight?
True, right.
What did you think?
I really liked the young punk girl with her really teased. It's like almost an afro, but almost a mohawk at the same time, with her blonde punk crazy waterfall. I thought that was great.
Yeah, that's pretty 80s. Favorite scene?
I really liked, because it was just sheer stupidity, the helicopter scene where they turn it on to fight the demons, but the propeller's going at it's rotating so slowly that no one could possibly get hit from it, and it only rotates like maybe 2 times, just enough to hit 2 demons in the face. And yeah, it was just a very elaborate scene that ended up very underwhelming, for a bunch of gore effects. Yeah, I really liked it.
Oh, I think mine was probably the motorcycle and the samurai sword.
Yep.
I think. Just crank up the heavy metal track and just have 3 minutes of him driving up and down, chopping at people.
Yeah, I was shazamming all the music, because a lot of it apparently was quite underground bands. I mean, not Billy Idol, obviously.
Go West.
But yeah, but the sword scene was by the song was by a band called Accept, and the name of the song was Fast as a Shark. So I thought that was quite cool.
That is quite apt. Okay, most cliched horror moment.
Transformation scene, especially the first really good one, where you could see her teeth growing. That was amazing. And her nails growing, like it's very similar to all those werewolf movies that came out in the 80s as well, which I haven't seen any of, but I know about them. I love transformation scenes. They're amazing, especially in the 80s, because everything was like practical effects. So very cool, very cool.
Which is why everybody has to stop and watch them.
Yes.
No, I would agree. And what would your favorite special effect be?
I have to say the transformation scene was pretty awesome. There was another scene. Oh, when when the demon comes out of her back,
Yeah, I was going to say that too.
That
The
was-
demon emerging from Kathy's back is
completely
crazy.
unexplained, unexpected, and amazing at the same time.
It's pretty out there, isn't
Yeah,
it?
I had the same. I remember when I first watched that movie, I had the same reaction as when I watched Society for the shunting scene. Like my mouth was just wide open because I was shocked at what I was witnessing.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. It reminds me very much of The Evil Dead. I don't know whether that was an influence, but it does remind me. Favorite sound effect?
All the sounds were pretty bad.
They were. I have a nomination for worst sound effect again.
Yeah, I hated. In terms of worst sound effect, I hated the motorbike. It was it was so irritating and really loud and piercing and yeah.
I think my favorite worst sound effect would have to be the approaching helicopter, which sounded like the sound effects you would get on a Casio home keyboard around about the time. It was just a white noise effect going up and down, and then because I actually literally thought, wow, what's coming? Because this is a strange sound. But it was a helicopter, and we were supposed to believe that was the noise it was making. And star rating for fake blood.
There was so much liquid. Like some of it, there wasn't a lot of fake blood per se, but there was a lot of like demon blood, I guess.
Yeah.
And it was
it wasn't a very bloody movie.
Yeah, there were lots of other colored liquids being projected.
Yeah.
The only bloody scene I can think of is the scene where one of the girls is trying to escape to a room that goes nowhere anyway, and the demon grabs her hair and rips her hair off. And that's the only bloody scene I can actually think of that actually has red blood.
Yeah, and maybe the scene where the aforementioned razor blade cocaine nipple scene where the punk actually cuts her boob.
Yeah.
But it's not very convincing at all.
No,
it has to be said.
No, not at all.
So that's not great. And that is the Mooblies.
Okay, one more thing I thought was kind of funny. You know how the whole thing about is it called Chekhov's gun? Chekhov's rifle?
Oh, the Hitchcock thing where if there's a gun in the room, it has to go off at some point.
I felt that there were a few items, you know, the bike and the sword, and then it's like, oh, of course, it gets used. And also the vending machine as well.
Yes.
It's like they had a very limited amount of props, and they had to really, you know, make it obvious that they're gonna be used, and then they were used. That's the only thing I had to say.
Yeah, the only thing that doesn't get used is the mask. I thought there would be some whole how to reverse it. It would involve destroying the mask or something, but you never see it again.
Yeah, right.
So,
What another thing I don't understand about the film is where did they put the front door? If they got into the cinema, surely they would go the same way out, or did it become the wall?
I think it
Is that
became
what
the
happened?
wall.
Oh,
yeah.
okay. So the cinema was a entity that could change.
Yes.
Is that what? Oh,
Yeah.
I
So
get
at one
it
point
now.
you get somebody shouting, "It's the movie! Stop the movie!" in pretty much the same sort of tone of voice of "Think of the Children" from The Simpsons.
Yeah.
And then later on, Werner, the blind guy, says, "It's the theatre."
Yeah.
So
Okay.
could be anything.
They totally could have gone further with that and had like all sorts of things changing, like doors appearing, disappearing. They could have had rooms appear. Oh, it could have been really cool.
Yeah, that's what I thought was going to happen when they broke through the wall, but now they just patted on a brick wall and went back for a cigarette.
Oh, wow.
Strange.
So we're back, and it's time for the final verdict.
Yes, so you nominated this film, you pulled it out of there. You tell me why you think it should be saved, or maybe after watching it with fresh eyes, you think, actually, let's just throw this thing back in there.
I think it should be saved. but purely on how fun the movie is and the special effects, and also the cinematography as well. But is that enough to save this film, do you think?
You see, I thought to myself, wow, this is okay, episode 2, this is going to be maybe the first time we have a disagreement. So I think no. I have to say, I mean, I get where you're coming from. I mean, the fact that it has no characterization, no plot, no point to it thematically. I mean, it's just weird that you have this whole thing with there's a movie within a movie, but it's not used for irony. It's not like the movie's crap isn't that funny, but this is real life and we're commenting on it in some way. It's just that both films are crap. So the acting's terrible. The special effects are great, but yeah, is it enough? Is it sort of enough that it's just like freewheeling entertainment and fun to watch? And I had to say, I didn't think so. I was kind of bored.
Oh, right. I was the opposite. I was just always entertained by both the sheer shitness of it and also the joy of the gore and the special effects.
Yeah, see, I didn't think it fell into the so bad it's good territory because it wasn't bad. Like you say, technically it was, the effects, the cinematography, visually, what it was trying to do. It was proficient despite being on a tight budget. I thought it was well done, but but only in those 2 categories, and the rest of it just didn't add up to much.
Yeah.
So I know it was a huge hit in Italy. I think it's roundly panned everywhere else, and isn't really well known, I wouldn't say.
No.
I mean, out of the pantheon of Italian 80s horror, I think Argento is certainly known more.
Yeah, and same with Lucio Fulci as well. I think they are definitely a lot more, and they have a lot more in their career that do stand up and are quite revered. So what do we do?
I don't know. I'm voting we throw it in. We throw it back. Because does it deserve to be remembered and watched loads of times? Do we think our listeners should go out, seek out this movie and watch it? And I
think so.
Oh, I don't know. I think in good conscience, I think there are better movies out there. I don't think this one's a classic.
I mean, I'm also inclined, like, there are a lot of things that I do agree with you on it. It's not something I would recommend to everyone, even people that watch these kind of movies. But yeah, okay. So I think we should agree to chuck it back in.
I think we should. I think, and seeing as you pulled it out there, I think you should be the man for the job.
Okay, so I'm just gonna grab it just a second. Come here. All right.
No.
Opening the oubliette now.
Watch out for Troll 2.
All right, get in there. Close the oubliette. Okay.
Marvelous.
So for the next episode, it's your choice, Conrad. So what are we gonna drag out of the oubliette?
Okay, so next time around, I think we're going to make a little bit of a genre shift into science fiction with the legendary Saturn III, which stars Kirk Douglas and Farrah Fawcett and Harvey Keitel. Sounds great, doesn't it?
Wow, what a star-studded cast.
Indeed, and a killer robot. It can't be anything but great.
Okay, I'm looking forward to it. It sounds like an Oscar-winning kind of movie.
It really does, doesn't it? But strangely, not remembered. So let's give it a whirl and see what you think of it.
So that concludes the second episode of Movie Oubliette. I'm Dan.
And I'm Conrad. And we'd be thrilled if you followed us on our social media outlets. We're on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, and we are there as Movie Oubliette. And if you can't spell oubliette,
Oubliette.
Sorry, I missed that. What was that again?
Oubliette.
Yes. So that's how you can find us. We'd love to hear from you about what films you think we should do, what you thought of the movie that we looked at this week, and any of your thoughts. And do give us a star rating and a review on iTunes or your favorite podcast platform. It really helps us out.
All right, we'll see you next time.
Bye for now.
Bye.
We review the films others tend to forget. Come with us and open up the movie Oubliette.
That's my husband.